The same exact words. You can take their exact words that they're throwing at you about how you're denying your real self and you can't ever change. You can't actually be the person that you want to be. That's what they're saying to you. And that's the same thing that gets said to the trans community all the time, that they see as like transphobic and denying people's humanity and all of that kind of stuff. They're denying your humanity. They're denying your story. That's the crazy element of this, is you said, I was trans, but I was not trans. I was mistaken. I made a mistake. And now I see the light. Now I know who I really am. And the trans community elements of it are coming after you saying, that's not who you are. You're who I say you are. That's unbelievable to me. It really is. It's so obvious.
Like, now that I decided to give my life to Jesus, they think that this is not the right path. Like, no, you should go back. Like, they even call me she or her. They still call me she, even though I already go to the world as him.
They're dead naming you. They're messing up your pronouns. You know what
yes,
I mean?
exactly.
When they say, why do you dine with tax collectors and sinners and prostitutes? He said, it's the sick that need a doctor, not the healthy. I came here for the sick. And you were, I mean, I don't mean sorry, but you would probably admit it, like you were sick. So Jesus came and he healed you. And the fact that Christians are coming after you for getting your pathway right. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, educator in Los Angeles, bringing viewpoint diversity and critical thinking to help people get towards the truth. That's the goal, just inch our way closer and closer to the truth. Cylinder Radio is a diversity of thought podcast. It's a viewpoint diversity podcast. And the very first episode I did was with a transgender individual named Danny Cesena. Since then, I've done 7 episodes with transgender people, and I've done 3 episodes with detransitioners. That's Chloe Cole, that was Calvin Lunt, and it was Navy SEAL Chris Beck. And all different stages of life, all very different backgrounds and stuff. And I'm doing another episode today with Diego Arellan. He is another detransitioner with a very different story. And this one is going to be centered a lot on how faith broke him out of that, because that was not the case with Chloe Calvin. Maybe a little bit with Chris Beck, but not. It was with him, but not to the degree that is with Diego. So Diego is the owner of an apparel brand called D King, which we're going to be talking about. It's a Christian apparel brand. And when my wife actually saw him and sent him to me and said, like, you got to get him on the podcast because his story is so powerful. And I think that powerful testimonies are really, really interesting. At the very least, they're interesting. I teach apologetics. I think that, reason, logic is very important, but also testimony and stories and things. So I really want to hear, your story and everything. Diego, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be really great. And I would love for you to kind of just dive in, share your story. What is your story? Because from my understanding, you were a transgender woman, presenting yourself as a woman out in the world, and then now you're not. And you're very strong in your faith. You've dedicated your life, your business, everything to Christianity. I'm curious about how that happened. So if you could just walk myself and the audience through your background, what led you to the road of making the decision, which is a big decision, to transition and then make the choice to detransition, and kind of where you're at now. So if you could just go do that, I'll probably interrupt you from time to time just to get some clarity. But yeah, it's really nice to see you. It's really nice to have you on here. And I think that this is a very important conversation as we work forward in the future, because the trans issue is so big and it's so polarizing. I think we have to tell stories. And that's why I've covered this topic more than any other, is because I think the stories are so important. So really nice to meet you. And let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So, hey everybody. I'm originally from Lima, Peru, and I came here 6 years ago. Now, the question that everybody is like asking me, even in my platform, is like, why you transition? What took you to that path? And I took that decision when I moved to USA of turning into a trans woman, but back in Peru, I've always felt different since I was a little kid. I've always felt like I wasn't, like, I didn't belong in my body, that I felt like this is not who I am. Although my family was very close-minded and we always grew up in a Christian home. We didn't practice that much my mom was not very Christian, but we always, kind of force it to go.
Yeah.
So I grew up in that kind of environment. We had so much problems going on. My dad passed away when I was just 6. So that I feel like so many things happened when I was a kid. So many we it kind of like broke a lot of things, and like just felt very lonely since I was a little kid, and um I think my desire of being a little girl, or like, being my opposite gender, was since I was like 6, 5.
Mhm.
And it's funny because when I just started thinking back when I was trans, I was like, I've always born that way, like this
Mhm.
is who I am, this is my identity. God says that he does not make mistakes, but it doesn't make sense to me that like this.
Yeah.
So um it took me a lot of courage to transition into a woman. Yeah, a lot. It's a big thing to commit. um but since I was a little kid, I've always thought that that was the way I wanted to be, like I've always like had that desire to be a woman, although I didn't know that it was possible to change your gender.
Hmm.
Because I don't know, my family never teach me those kind of things. So I was like, just an imagination of me coming to a woman was like, wow, this is amazing, just to think about it. But it's never going to happen because like it doesn't exist,
Not possible. That's
it's
in
not possible. That's how I
that
grew up.
Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of what's going on now is people say, like, from like the whatever, like woke, or what, the far left, that this is something that kids are indoctrinated into. Like, they're pushed. You weren't pushed into this. It wasn't like, hey, you're not really like a boy, right? You want to be a girl. You want to be a girl. You want to be. It wasn't like that. It was very intrinsic, and you kind of the opposite. It was kind of meeting
Yeah.
this resistance. That's a really important point. So this wasn't something that you were indoctrinated into by your crazy celebrity parents or something like that want to have a trans kid so they can parade it around in the tabloids or something along those lines, by any stretch. That, not saying that doesn't happen, but that wasn't your story. So this is something that you feel like was very innate in you. Interesting.
Yes, definitely. A lot. I mean, it's something that I've heard a lot from like trans community, because I have like a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that, well, most of them are from South America. So we always grew up in the environment of like, we're very Christian, a Christian home. We never grew up with those kind of thoughts until we took the decision when we get old. And it's something that I just like, it's really powerful to say, like, if you are going if you even think about transition, first of all, you have to like really be like, it's just not a beautiful path, It's not what the world tells you it is going to be. It's I if, From my perspective, it was a big scam. That's how I felt it. I lose not only money, but I lose like my like a lot of my I kind of got very overwhelmed about everything, and I lost my family, I lost many things, and I felt very lonely. And like, it's so sad. It's really sad. Like, that life, it's really hard for if you think that you're gonna solve all your problems just by doing it. And a lot of
Yeah.
people just like, even kids nowadays, like, we're in this world where like they're teaching all those things that you can be whoever you want to be at a very young age, when in reality it's not. Especially in California, it's like, you can be, like, no, that at least let him grow up, let him, be an adult, and like, just show him like, let him grow up, let them be kids first,
Yeah.
and experiment by their own. And I think that God works in very mysterious ways. I've never thought I will find him. I never thought that I will be turning back, like, never in my entire life thought about that, because I was so in love with who I was becoming. Yes, I had so much going on in my life when I was trans, but I still was like, there's no way I can turn back. Like, I've never seen somebody this transition. It will be crazy.
Well, the the,
So
the
yeah,
stories about detransitioners doesn't get nearly as much play in the
yeah.
media as, like, Chloe Cole, for example, was really vilified a whole lot, for her decision. I don't know if you're familiar with her. But you said you started feeling this way young, like kindergarten age. When
Yes.
did you make the decision to transition then? How old were you? And also, what did transition look like? Because it's different for everybody. I mean, was it hormones? Was it surgeries? I mean, if you don't mind, just bringing us in a little bit, what you're willing to share.
Yeah, no. So when we moved here in USA, it was like 6 years ago. I didn't know nothing about trans until I was 17 or 18.
Okay.
So when we moved here, I was 17. So we did, yeah. And it was when I started working in this restaurant where like there was like some gay friends I met, and they introduced me to that world. That's when I pretty much was like they introduced me to so many things that like the USA has, and like all they all this. It's very open minded here in USA. So I was like, wow, there's this world. Like I couldn't believe it, and I started just like I started searching about like transgender, like how to start a process and everything, because it was a dream that I had. Just to think that it was going to be possible, it was like, oh my god, no, there's no way. So I remember right away I just went and started looking it up, and they would just give me options on how to get hormones and how to start your process as a trans woman and everything. And I right away like called them, and they put me in like in a schedule time, and they scheduled me an appointment, and I went there, and it's incredible because I start. That's when I was like overthinking a lot, because I was like, if I take this decision, I'm not gonna be able to have kids. I'm not gonna be able to go back to who I was, because like that's now I'm gonna have to take hormones for the rest of my life until I die, and I'm gonna have to pass through surgeries that is going to hurt my body. So what do you want to do? Even though like I suffer from my liver, I had some problems with my liver. I knew that that was going to be bad for my liver too, because I was going to take hormones every single day. So all those thoughts are starting to come to my head. I told my family. They were very like disappointed, mad, sad. I don't know, so many feelings going on in my house. So, but I was like, this is my life. This is who I wanted always to be. So I don't. Pretty much, I was like, I don't care about your opinions. Like I'm gonna take it either way. It
Yeah.
broke my mom's heart, me, but I was very excited to who I was going to become, and all the things that the social media and everything tells you who you're going to be and what you're going to become and the way you're going to transform. So I was very excited to see that. And yes, I started my hormones, and I remember they just took me to an appointment. They started asking me questions about since when I started feeling this way. And I told them like a little bit of my story. And they were right away, okay, we're gonna set you an appointment with a psychologist, and you're gonna have to pass that, and then we're gonna see if you can start the process. But I felt like it was gonna be hard. But when I went there, they like didn't ask me many questions. They right away gave me the hormones pretty much. So it was like so
Okay.
easy.
Well,
So easy to get
that's
there.
a thing, right? So there wasn't a rigorous process of like deep therapy of, why do you feel like this? What happened here? Tell me about when your dad passed away. It was for your experience it was fast tracked right into let's get you on these medications. Let's start you transitioning.
Yes, definitely.
That seems to be an overlap of a lot of the people that I've talked to. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like, like since I'm Christian now, I've opened a lot of my spirituality. I've been growing that a lot. And I realized that in this world, there's so much war going on, and it's spiritually we're talking. And it's like, I realized that the devil has opened so many doors for people to just to think that this is the right way, this is the good way, just to get them away from God, and let them be lost in their own desire, in their own sin, in their own life that they think that is perfect, but in reality it's not. So when I say yes to that, I started taking my hormones. My first year was one of the worst years I've ever had, because well, yeah, I was kind of happy to see some transformation into my body, but also like all like my moods were swinging a lot. They were bad. Like I've never felt that way before. And then I started having some pain in my liver. That was something physically that I was suffering to, but I didn't care, because I had that mentality. And so I still push it. I still wanted to be this kind of woman that I've always dreamed. And so yeah, it was so hard. That's when I met gender dysphoria. I don't know if you ever hear about this,
Mhm.
but I think that you already like
Absolutely.
yes, it's like so bad because then you start overthinking so much about yourself. It's pretty much everybody has it, but you know when you enter trans to transform your body into something you're not, that's like really, really like when you met gender dysphoria, it's just so hard because you start hating yourself so much. And the world tells you like you're gonna love yourself if you become this kind of person, but in reality, is you're gonna hate it more because you're not accepting your nature. You're not accepting the way were the way you were born. You're trying to change it, so you're in reality not accepting it, and it's really a really hard path. And that's something that I realized little by little. The more I went far on it, the more lonely, the more horrible I felt. Even though after 3 4 years I started seeing the big changes. I got surgeries, I got my breast augmentation, I got my skinny BBL, I got like so many surgeries, and also like some um buttocks and everything, some fillers,
Mhm.
so just to like get closer to who I wanted to be. And I got into a point where like nobody recognized me that I was a trans woman. So when you get into that point, that it's bad because then you believe it. You know, you believe not to be trans woman anymore, but you believe to be a woman now. And that's how I felt it. You know, I was a woman. Now there's no way that nobody like can change that. And so every time I like go to work or because I work at a bar, so like I get to know a lot of people, and he was like, they all thought that I was a woman, and I've always had that like I can let anybody know that I'm a trans woman. I can let them. I can uh, not let it. Sorry, my English is kind of bad.
Okay.
Sorry.
Better than my Spanish.
Um, no, but I was so afraid. I got to the point where I was so afraid because I didn't want anybody to know that I was a man, you know? And I started going into relationships, into deep relationships. And of course, I tell them that I was trans, and they accepted that was okay for the people I dated. But
You dated
they,
men?
yes, I dated men well, I dated two guys. We went for like different, you know, like 2 years. One of the 2 years, and the other one was a year and a half. But the thing with them, it was I thought that my happiness was I was gonna find that in them, in people, you know, because who doesn't want to have a partner?
Of
And
course.
that's what when my mistake was because I put too much of my whole world to I give them my whole world to them, like if they were God, you know.
Yeah.
And that was the worst mistake I did. That was because I realized that they truly didn't love me. They were just trying to figure it out what they like. And in reality, if you're a trans woman and you're watching this, or you're trans man and you're, you know, if you put too much on it, then you're gonna just fall because they're not God. And God is the only one who can help you. God is the only one who can just take you out of that world and transform your life into a better life. And that's what I've been learning a lot lately.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
how long ago? So you're at a timeline. You started this process when you're 17, 18 years old. You're, a couple of years in. When did you start to go, okay, I don't want this. I've gone down this road pretty far. This is not satisfying me the way that I want. Did you have to I heard someone say, who was an addict, they said, I had to hit rock bottom, and Jesus was the rock at the bottom. That's who I met at the bottom. Did you have to have experience
Um,
like that, or were you able to catch it before it got really bad? How did you go then? You were on this trajectory. It wasn't quite satisfying you, but you were on this road, and you had elements of it that I'm sure felt good, and you were getting good attention, and you could kind of present yourself in the way that you wanted to present yourself. But then something did it happen slowly? Was it a quick, like, eye-opening, scales falling from your eyes, type of like Paul experience?
yeah.
Like, what happened to then turn you the other way? And
Yes.
how long ago was that?
That was actually 6 months ago. I was
Wow.
it's been very, like, I was living in Miami when that happened. Actually, I broke up with my boyfriend at the time, and um, my sister actually called me, telling me like she met Jesus, she accepted Jesus in her heart. And when I hear that, I was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, okay, good for you, but I wanted to hang out right away because I felt like bad, because I grew up in a Christian home. I know that God wasn't happy with the decision I took, and right away I hung up on her. I remember that day. I was before she called me. I was like on drugs, so I was smoking a lot, and I was even doing some other stuffs, and I was bad. Like I like you said, I hit rock too. Because I started even seeing demons. It was that bad that night I had before she called me. And I was with my friends. We started seeing demons, and it was so bad. Like I feel like I went into another world, and I had the worst experience I've ever had because I've never felt that way with drugs. And then the next day, my sister called me telling me all those things. So it got into my head about Jesus, about giving my life to him. But then right away, I was like, there's just no way. There's no way I can go back to who I was. And that same day, I start overthinking a lot. I could not stop thinking about Jesus, about the love that I had when I was in Peru, the experience that I felt when I was there. Um, and so I right away called my mom. I told her about a little bit about that change, about what my sister shared me, and I start crying. I like got so I felt like I don't know, like a little kid, I guess. And I was telling her like, Mom, I'm very tired. I'm exhausted. Like pretending to be this person for so many years, it's not bringing me happiness. I'm so tired. Like the world is just, I feel like it's breaking me in every single way. And I can understand it because when I was living in Miami, I had a really nice job. I was living in the best areas in Miami. I had, like I was like, I feel like a lot of people think that because you're successful, because you have good money, like a lot of money, uh, you're living the best areas, you're going to also find happiness in that way. But at least that's how I felt. And when I went into that point, it was it was so bad. Like
It
I
can be
felt so
worse.
lonely.
Diego, it can be worse.
Yeah,
One of the things I've told students is like the only thing worse than being unhappy is being rich and unhappy because you don't even have the
yeah,
excuse of like, well, I'm broke, so it's like, oh, I have things. I
exactly,
have, it's more of the worldly stuff. So that
exactly.
that that makes it that makes it worse. It's like people look like you. Why are you unhappy? You have all this stuff. It's like, yeah, well, because something's not right. There's just something not right, and you were cognizant enough to recognize that. You didn't. Maybe you tried to use drugs just to like quiet that voice in your head that was yelling at you that
Yeah,
something's not right. But clearly, he was chasing you. Like clearly,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's how that's what I realized. I was very blind at by that time. I didn't think about it, but um, so I gave my life. Well, I called my sister the next day and I started telling her about like what she shared me about Jesus, and I told her, "Let just I would like to know more about what happened, why you took that decision." And she started sharing me her testimony, and the way she just explained it, I was like so. I don't know. Like I started overthinking a lot of like, oh wow, it will be beautiful to feel his presence again. It will be amazing to just feel peace in my heart. I haven't felt it in so long. I haven't felt it loved in so long. And just to think that it was something that I desire so badly. But then reality was like, okay, but if you, well, my thoughts, my demonic thoughts was like, okay, so if you give your life to Jesus, what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to be who you are, be this woman that you've been creating for so many years. Like you're gonna give up all of that, and what? You're gonna go back to a boy. So all those thoughts that start going through my head, really bad thoughts.
Yeah.
And not only about that, but also money and all those things. Because I know that when you give your life to Jesus, there is going to be a lot of things you're going to have to give him. You're going to have to give your world to him. And sometimes that is not easy, and you know that probably. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to give him things that you were so attached to because you turn them into your idol. And
Yes.
that's the problem of us, of humanity. We tend to make idols so easily. So that's something that that I knew that it was going to cost me. But nothing compares to God. Nothing compares to the love of God. So
So did you have like a
then
moment, Diego? Sorry, to cut you off, but like, did you? So was
yeah,
it just like this, or were you like, okay, that's it, I'm switching, or you're like, all right, let me ease in a little bit, let me start going to church, let me see if I'm accepted, let me see if people are cool with me. Like, was it a relationship with Jesus? Did you drop to your knees and start praying? Like, what then got you? That's 6 months ago. I'm looking at you
yes,
now, like that's like, I'll show pictures, in the podcast. Like it's startling. Like you look
yeah, no,
like a hot chick, you know what I mean? Like, so you went from that to this, like how did that, like how that happened quick? How did that happen where you were like, all right, no, I'm maybe getting rid of, getting new surgeries, changing the way I present myself, the way I dress. Like, how did that happen so quickly?
yeah. It wasn't that easy. It wasn't that fast. It took me probably like a month and a half or so. I think
Okay.
it was like a average. I moved to Miami because I knew right away that if I was gonna give my life to Jesus, I had to be closer to my family. I couldn't do it by myself,
Okay.
and so they live in Jacksonville.
Okay.
So I pretty much just quit everything in there. I was very sad because I started thinking of like, wow, like I'm living my best life. I could be something here,
Yeah.
I could be growing in here. Um, but when I moved here, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna give it a time, and I'm gonna go to church. I'm gonna try if I feel His presence, and if I don't, well, I'm gonna stay into my plan, which it was buy a house, get a job in Jacksonville, and get a boyfriend because I was alone for a while now, and so I went to church with my sister, and I was expecting a lot. I was expecting to feel his presence right away, but I didn't feel anything. The church was beautiful. When
Yeah.
I saw it was big and people were very friendly. Something that came to my head a lot was like, if they realize that I am trans, or they see me like in kind of different way, I'm not gonna go back because I don't want to feel judged,
Yeah.
especially by the church.
Of
And
course.
so I went with that mentality. So when I went there, I started looking at everybody. Um, they were just treating me like another person. That's it. So they were
Mhm.
very friendly, and that's something that I love to tell people. If you get to see somebody that, I don't know, if you realize they're trans or they're joining to the church, don't treat them differently. Treat them as what they present. I know it's hard for people to uh, uh, not misgender them, but if they're trying, at least you have to treat them as the way they're presented, because you don't want to offend them. You don't want to stay them, like get them away from God. You know, and the first times, yes, you're gonna have to treat them that way until God gives them their conviction, until God's work in their lives, and that's when they will see by their own, but not for us that we are gonna like judge them or anything. That we don't want them to think that way.
Right.
So that's what I felt, and I went the first time. I didn't feel nothing. I felt like I was talking to a wall. It was
Yeah.
like so bad. Then I went again, and it was the same thing until I was like, okay, this is not working. I'm losing my time. I'm gonna go back to my plan. And that same week, um, we went for a walk. I went for a walk with my dog, and I started looking at the sky. I was like, if you are real, just please show me. Please show me you're real, because like I don't know if I'm just going crazy, but I really want to feel you. I felt you once. I know like I know you're real, but I'm going through so much right now, and I can't do this by myself. And at that same moment, like I'm not lying to you, Will, I felt his presence. I just felt, I closed my eyes and I look at the sky and I just felt his presence in an incredible way, in an undescribable way. I started having goosebumps all over my body, and I felt a light that it was stronger than than the sun's light, and I just felt like he listened to me, you know, and I felt like how he was he opened my eyes. He like in a different way. So like I started looking at my body, and it felt like I was just wearing a costume. And I've never felt that way before with my transition and everything. But I felt that way in a very strong way. And I was wearing a very short dress, very provocative dress, and I felt ridiculous. Like I've never felt ridiculous in my entire life from being transgender until that moment. And I just was like, why? Like looking at my long hair, looking at my breast, looking at all those things that I've done, and I just start crying. Like it was like he just like opened my eyes, and I went running to my sister, and I told her about what I felt, because it was something that I'm his presence. I felt his presence, and I start crying to my like telling to my sister, I don't know what just happened, but I'm feeling very like not okay. We need to go home right now, because I'm just not. I feel like God, it's like just listen to what I said, and I feel ridiculous somehow, and I was. I start crying so bad. I'll put my sunglasses on, and I just felt like in that moment, like how clearly God was telling me, like, it's okay, my son. Your fight is over. You're not longer going to suffer from this because you decide to follow me. You decide to accept me in your heart. And right away, like when I was just looking at the sky, telling him all those things, I told him, I accept you on my heart, Jesus Christ. I do like the prayer you have to do to get to accept him on your heart. And when I hear that, like clearly, boys, like I'm not lying to you. Like I sometimes I overthink about it, but it's just like, was it real? Was it not? But it was completely real, because even my body was like, having the goosebumps and the chills, and it was indescribable. And I right away felt how little by little he was taking away that whole anxiety and depression I was carrying for so long. And I felt so much happy, although I knew what I was gonna leave. I I was feeling so in peace, but I was like, I don't care. I really don't care. So we went back home, and the next 3 days I didn't wanted to put makeup on. I didn't wanted to get dressed as a woman and present to the world as a woman. It was something really weird, because since I transitioned, I've always wanted to put makeup and all of those things, because it represents who I was,
Yeah.
And just to think that way, I was like, wow, like I just don't want to get out of the house. And I didn't. And the next 3 days I was like that, until I told my sister, let's go buy some new clothes. I was just, I don't know, I was just feeling it, just feeling like I wanted to satisfy, my like how I feel right now. And I went to that store, and I started looking for some clothing, and I went to the fitting room, and right away when I put that clothes of men's clothes, I felt like, wow, I felt like myself. And I started crying, because I was like, wow, I haven't seen you for like 5 years. And I just was so happy. Then I went back home, and that's when my uh like my spiritual fights starts, because God loves you, God accepts you, and he will work on you. But that when you accept Jesus in your heart, a lot of people think that it's going to get better, like you things are going to be good, and they are going to be good. But before things are good, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be hard to leave, and a lot of struggles. And I didn't know that. I thought that right away I was going to feel this joy, and I felt that joy. But
Mm-hmm.
then I started having my fights of like, okay, now it's time to cut your hair. Clothing, it's something that you can buy or whatever,
Right, right, right.
But when it's about your like touching your like cutting hair, for example, my hair was so long and it was my representation. That was the hardest thing for me. It was my whole identity to who I was, and so when I look at the mirror, I was like, I don't think I can do that. This is really hard for me. But
Yeah.
I right away just felt like it has to happen now. It has to happen now. And okay. So I sit down. My sister was there, so she cut my hair. And it was a horrible experience because I start having these horrible thoughts of like, I will never feel like, no man will be attracted to you now. Nobody's gonna look at you the way they've been looking at you, and nobody's gonna desire you. So all these thoughts start coming to my head, and I couldn't stop it. So I start feeling the anxiety again, like so like bad.
Yeah.
And right away my sister was like, we need to pray. We need to pray right now. And so we start praying because I felt, when Peter was in the boat, and he was, with all other disciples, and like the waves were really bad. There was a big storm. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And when we were praying, like it's incredible how he works, how Jesus works. Because right away I started feeling that peace in my heart. And it felt like the storm that I was in, it was getting calm in a way that I could not express it. Like when you pass through something difficult in your life, there's no way you can feel calm on it. There's no way. You're all gonna have anxiety or so much going on that you can't be like in calm. But when you're with Jesus, oh, that's different. That works different. And I felt that incredible peace in my heart. And I look at the mirror and I was like, let's cut it. And she cut it. And when she started cutting, and I wanted to just get it shorter and shorter and shorter. And she went super short, and I felt so much joy.
Wow.
I right away went to put my clothes back, my clothes on, and I start looking, and I look at the cell, and I look at the mirror, and it felt good, to see Diego for like almost 5 years without seeing him. And I just felt like, wow, God does, he does do miracles. And that was like the beginning of my new transformation, my new life in Jesus.
Wow. What did you do? What did you do with your breast augmentation?
Oh, well, I feel like the next 2 weeks, I set an appointment right away. Wow. I had the money. I have been saving a lot, and I was going to buy a house. That was my plan. But God, he has different plans for you. He has a very different plan for you.
Yeah.
You thought that you had a plan? No. Either your plan is too small or it's all wrong. But God has an incredible plan for you. And so I took that money from that house I was going to buy, and I immediately set an appointment for it. Like take my breast, my breast out, because during these 2 weeks, it felt so uncomfortable to me. Like my breast, when I work out, when I go out, I felt like I just couldn't, I was feeling ashamed about what I did. And so I was like, I know I need to get rid of this right away. And I did it. It was painful, yes. But when I finally saw my flat chest, it was like, whoa, this is good. This is so good. I just started feeling so good about myself, about finding who I am now. And, I've always felt like, how am I gonna be identify with my gender if I've never felt that way? But when you just really accept Jesus, he works on your life step by step, of course. But it's like I felt like I was starting to love myself more, and I felt like I had like a bigger connection with my identity that I've never felt in my entire life. And just feeling that connection with masculinity was like something like I've never felt before. And it's so good, And now I want to work out. I want to just go back to, like, uh, because I still have, some other surgeries like the skinny BBL that I did, which is like, like it shapes you as a woman's body, and it's kind of hard to get rid of that because they design it that way. So, but I'm still, like I'm not giving up. This is the process, though. I know this is going to cost me, like, keep going on it, going to the gym and all those things, but I'm just happy with the way that God is working in my life, and He's been transforming little by little, not only my like inside of me, but also the outside. So
Yeah.
I am just so much enjoy about it.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, I think
Yeah,
it's in Deuteronomy, they talk about, the stuff where like men shouldn't wear women's clothes and women shouldn't wear men's clothes. I think a lot of it's like Old Testament stuff, but it's essentially like giving categories because we need guardrails for life. We have so many choices, and the world is going to guide you towards, the world is going to push you towards what feels good, follow your heart type of stuff. And
yeah,
your heart is deceitful. We know that. So to get guardrails about like where to be once we ate from the fruit and we have consciousness, we can think and we can decide right from wrong. Then we need a guidebook on what is right and wrong. But that's a tricky thing too, because like, yes, God made male and female, but made a lot of diversity within men and women. Like, yeah, you're a man, but you are also like, there's things in your brain chemistry and your body chemistry, like where naturally you probably had like low testosterone. And I know women who have like high testosterone. It doesn't mean that they're
yeah.
trans, but it does mean that they do have like certain things. And that's something that they're born with. I mean, you talked about dating men. I mean, so would you categorize yourself as gay?
No, not at all. When I just like um when I first start, like, giving when I give my life to Jesus, that's what it comes right away into my head. Like, okay, so what am I gonna do now? Like, am I gonna be gay now?
Yeah.
But God, that's not what that's not the call that God had for me, And I prayed a lot to God to just give me the help I was needing, because I told him, like, I'm not attracted to women. I've never felt that attraction. So how do you want me to, like, how is this going to be, And it was so good. And little by little, he's been giving me this desire that I've never felt in my entire life. And it's been working really good now. Like, and you were right with what you said. Like, there's people about, like, who have low testosterone and higher estrogen, and that's how I feel, because um I don't I know there so society puts, like, oh, if you're a man, you have to be this kind of man, you have to be
Yeah.
strong and always so tough, and you can't show your feelings. But women always, they have to be so, sensitive and very delicate, very feminine. In reality, when you give your life to Jesus, those things really don't matter, because those are society. No,
Yeah.
that's what they created to be. But I think God, when I gave my life to Jesus, He knew that, I mean, that yes, I've been struggling for this for so many years, but He's so patient. He's so patient to me, and He's been teaching me a lot of things in my life right now. I don't consider myself gay, because I've been having the desire to have a wife one day and kids. And that's the promise that He has given to me when I gave my life to Him. And just thinking about it, about having a family, just makes me so excited. Being able to have kids one day, it just makes me excited. And it's something that is undescribable for me, because I've never felt that way before. But now, just thinking about it, it's like, wow, I just can't wait for that moment. And I know God will send it to me one day when I'm ready, because right now I'm in the process of, like, keep loving Him, keep growing my relationship with Him. Because you can't be with somebody if you're not, like, loyal to God.
That's incredible. The idea that this is changing, like you didn't think this was possible. You prayed, you followed. It wasn't just praying. It's not just reading the Bible. It's following what He's telling you to do, as
Exactly.
hard as it is, and you're starting to see good things come up. Do you know Daniel in the Bible? a lot of scholars believe that he was a eunuch. So he
Hmm.
lost, he didn't have, like testicles or like sexual reproductive organs. And he was used by God, even though he wasn't like a manly man. You know what I mean? He was
Yeah.
unable to reproduce and everything. He was Daniel in the Bible, like going up against lions and surviving the fire. Like, I mean, all this like incredible stuff, like this idea that he can only use certain people for his kingdom is just that's not biblical at all. I love
Yeah.
that. But when you
Wow.
say like the idea of, you are always kind of were attracted to men and now you're being attracted to women, and I know people listen to this and they'll go, that's nonsense. He's just deluding himself. It's like, well, hold on. I don't know if are you familiar, Diego, with Jackie Hill Perry?
Jackie Hill Perry.
Sorry.
Uh,
Jackie Hill Perry. Jackie Hill Perry is very, very interesting. I would definitely look her up. She has a story. She was a lesbian for a long time, came to Christ, and now she has a family and a husband, beautiful kids, and she's just like, that's not, one of the ways to think about this, I think, is like, it's not just that you have a proclivity. Maybe from birth, you had this proclivity to be attracted, even though you're a man, to be attracted to other men. But that doesn't mean you're supposed to act on. This is one of those things that when I teach apologetics that people have wrestled with, is like, what about people who are born gay and all this kind of stuff? Like, you have a more like effeminate way about you, even though you are a man. So what does that mean? Aren't you supposed to just dive into that? And I think it's like, I don't think me as a heterosexual guy, I'm not just programmed to be attracted to women. I'm programmed to actually be attracted to and spread the seed and hook up with as many women as possible. But I don't do that. People have a genetic predisposition to be an alcoholic. So you just don't drink. And it's the denying what feels good or denying what serves you, the way that you're made is part of the walk. It's like you're programmed, from an early age, maybe, or not, I shouldn't say programmed, but you have proclivities. The way that you're built is to bear a certain cross. And we all have different crosses to bear. Some of us are born paralyzed. Some of us are born, with like arms and hands that don't work. Some of us are born blind. Some people are born, they have a proclivity to be attracted to the same sex. Some people are attracted to every girl and they just want to hook up with everything. Like we have all these things, but the word is essentially, you deny that, you deny yourself for me, and I will take care of you. I got you. And it's not just through your works that you're saved by grace, but you walk according to what I advise, and you will end up better. And I think that that's hard for people to understand, but you are the test. Like, you can't ignore, if you listen, you focus on the people who are gay and they're like, I'm gay and that's just what I like. And that's just what there is. And I want to do this. And I wouldn't feel complete without hooking up with other dudes. It's like, well, then you're missing the point, because you're not going to be complete no matter how many dudes you hook up with or how many girls you hook up with or how many, whatever it is, you're not going to be complete until you accept him. I mean, that's the idea. That's the whole thesis of being a believer, is that you are incomplete unless you acknowledge him. And then when you do that, what are you going to ignore your testimony, Diego? You're going to ignore Jackie Hill Perry's testimony? You're going to ignore these people who have these very real experiences? Why will you listen to the trans person experience and, this is my experience, this is my truth, but they're not going to listen to your truth and your experience? Or isn't that what we're supposed to do here, is listen to these different stories and take them in and say, wow, these are really valuable. And then you can put them in the marketplace of ideas and say, which story is a better story? Which life is a better life? And I think that, not to say that there's pressure on you, but there's an element here that God's using you and all of the hardships that you've been through to go out there and be a disciple, to bring people to him. And, he didn't give you an easy assignment here. He made you this way. You're like, what, God, why did you make me this way? Why couldn't you just make me a normal dude? Why did you give me all this stuff? It's like, maybe so you can have a really good testimony. I don't know if you know who Nick Vujicic is. He was a guy who was born with no arms or legs.
Oh yeah.
He has deep faith. Very incredible. Deep faith. And they're like, like, how do you have faith over this? He's like, maybe God used a guy with no arms and legs to be his arms and legs here on earth. And he is a more joyous person than he would be if he didn't have Christ. So what is that? That's not something you can just dismiss. And I do believe, I see you now, I do believe that you are happier now than you were back then. And that's your own testimony. But also, as you continue this walk, it will get better and better and better. Not to say it's not going to be hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy to be a follower of Jesus. That's like that's a myth. It is very difficult because you have to deny the world, and the world feels good. It feels real good. Okay. The devil's sneaky, but in doing that, you will end up with a much more meaningful life, and you just have a different sense about you. And I think that people are looking at you, Diego, and they're going to be looking at you of like, is this for real? Is this for real? And it's like, I got an assignment. You have an assignment, Diego, and you have an assignment. And this assignment is like to go out and live a life that's aligned with him and live a life of joy. Because if you see this as he died for me, he gave me so much grace. I was a sinner. We all are, by the way, not just you. We're all deep sinners. I was a sinner and he saved me. Well, all the disciples were sinners, all of them. We're all sinners. We're all terrible in so many ways. So what are we going to do? We need a savior because we believe in justice. So I just think that that's a really interesting point that I think people deny a lot from people in your experience is like, oh, you're gay, you're always going to be gay. It's like saying, well, you're an adulterer, you're a cheater, so you're always going to be a cheater. You're an alcoholic, you're always going to be an alcoholic. It's like, not if I make different choices, you know?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. No, that's so true. That's something that I realize a lot is like, when you give to life to Jesus, and especially for like when I gave my life to Jesus, I received so much hate of people telling me like, no, there's no way you can escape from who you are. You're gonna be gay now, and like you're just like thinking this, but this is not. There's no way that you can do that. And I just felt at the beginning, I've never felt that much hate in my life, so it kind of shocked me, and it kind of like I took it for granted, like it was like, wow, okay. Wow. But when I prayed it right away, I felt like God was, just telling me, hey, there will be people who hate you, but remember, they hated me first. And that's something that says in the Bible too. And it's like, when I read that verse, I was like, wow, this is strong. And I understand that there will be people who will, disagree with the point of view, but there will be others who will, listen and try it. And that's something beautiful because these couple of days, since that video got viral, I've been receiving so many people who are transgender trying to seek from God and asking me questions about how I did it. And I've been going on meetings with them because I want them to show them that this is true, that what we're talking about, it's not a scam. This is the life you can have if you really decide to follow Jesus and all the things he can do for you and get you stronger in that. And it's beautiful because they have a hope, because when you're in that world, you already try everything to be happy and they still not feel happy because, we always pretend to go to find the happiness in many ways in the world stuff, but in reality, God is the only one who can give you that, and that's something that we all know that we always have to experience. We are gonna experience that. Suddenly, we don't take the decisions when we are younger, but we just decide to find happiness in other stuff, and then realize like there's happiness only in Him. That's for sure.
David, the hypocrisy is so egregious because I'm like critical thinker. So I try to see things as objectively as possible. The same people that are saying, your truth and you have your truth and you have my truth. You're denying your truth. This is who you are. They're telling you who you are. And like the trans community is telling you who you are, not who you say you are. That's the exact language that gets used to push people into being trans.
Yeah.
It's like if I would say like, well, you're not really Caitlyn Jenner, you're actually a man. It's like, don't tell her who she is. And yet they're telling you who you are and not listening to you. It's so obviously hypocritical. So it's because it goes against their narrative. It's the same like tribalism that we see, whether it's Democrat versus Republican or whatever kind of thing it is the hypocrisy is so obvious that the same exact words, you can take their exact words that they're throwing at you about how you're denying your real self and you can't ever change. You can't actually be the person that you want to be. That's what they're saying to you. And that's the same thing that gets said to the trans community all the time, that they see as like transphobic and denying people's humanity and all of that kind of stuff. They're denying your humanity. They're denying your story. That's the crazy element of this, is you said, I was trans, but I was not trans. I was mistaken. I made a mistake. And now I see the light. Now I know who I really am. And the trans community elements of it are coming after you saying, that's not who you are. You're who I say you are. That's unbelievable to me. It really is. It's so obvious.
It is. It's so, you're so right. It is because, and even we've been like, I've been receiving, even in my, my platform, I've started receiving so much like fights from Christians and from the people from the world. They start fighting on it. And it's just something that it got into my heart a lot is like, wow, like, I see there's a lot of hate towards everybody, even from Christianity too. And I realized like, it makes me so mad, sad. I don't know, I have so many feelings going on because there is so much hypocrisy, as you said, about like, now that I decided to give my life to Jesus, they think that this is not the right path. Like, no, you should go back. Like they even call me she or her. They still call me she, even though I already go to the world as him.
They're dead naming you. They're messing up your pronouns. You know
yes,
what I mean?
Exactly. And they're like, it's so funny because I see these fights and it's like, wow, like this is incredible. It's just like they say they don't like the people when they misgender, but now that I decided to give my life to Jesus, now they have to misgender me, and it's so sad. But seeing these fights from the people from LGBT community towards Christianity and Christianity towards LGBTQ community, it's still, there's, I don't know, like, if they're completely Christians, because then I see other messages about telling them, oh, God doesn't love you, like, repent or you're going to hell, or all those. And they even use some verses, when they about like all those things, that if you don't repent, you're going to hell, all those things. And I'm just so, I don't know what to say about it, like, I just feel bad because I don't want those people who are hard, who are still in the world, to think that we as Christians are going, like, are that way. Exactly. Yes. They're going to label us as like, oh no, you're just always going to judge us. And it doesn't make it right. I still feel like, God, no. I felt like so bad because it's the people who are representing us,
Yes. And that, I mean, what did they want you to do? Like you lived a life of sin, which we all do, but like you were deep in sin and you heard the Holy Spirit and you followed the Holy Spirit out. And Christians are coming after you for following the Holy Spirit. There's one sin that they say is unforgivable in the Bible. That's denying the Holy Spirit. That's the one where he says like, you'll call out, Lord, Lord, and I'll say, I never knew you. This lukewarm Christianity stuff of like, you denied the Holy Spirit, but you didn't. You prayed up to the heavens. He came down and said, the Holy Spirit showed up and said, I got you. And you could have denied it. The fact is, Diego, as much as you're like effeminate and all this stuff, you don't think you have big muscles, you have courage. Dude, you have courage, because the reason why people in trans community are not turning towards what you, even though they might think it's to it, the reason they have to attack you is because they will have to give up so many things of the world. And you knew that and you did it anyway. That's what courage is. You said courage is not like lack of fear. It's you have fear, but beyond that fear is what you know to be right. And you go through the fear. So you gave up money, you gave up status, you gave up a whole bunch of things. You took the hard road. That's courageous. And people often who are cowards want to look at the courageous and take them down a notch. But the fact that the Christians are coming after you, what do you would want them to do? Jesus said that, when they say, why do you dine with tax collectors and sinners and prostitutes? He said, it's the sick that need a doctor, not the healthy. I came here for the sick. And you were, I don't mean to insult you, but you would probably admit it, like you were sick. So Jesus came and he healed you. And the fact that Christians are coming after you for getting your pathway right. I have a friend who's an OnlyFans like model and like actress or whatever you want to call it. And she says that all the time. We've taken her to church a couple of times and she's just so filled with shame. She's like, no man will ever want me. No, I can never have a normal life because I've lived this way in the past. It's like, have you read the Bible? The Bible is all about broken people who then find the Lord and then become full. That's the whole trajectory. And the fact that Christians are coming after you when you did the right thing after doing the wrong thing, after being very lost, having a hard life, losing your father, going through this thing, the way that your body's made, the way your brain's made, the way your hormones are made. This is a hard hand to be dealt. You were handed a really tough hand in this game of life, this poker game of life, Diego. And then you didn't know how to play this hand. This is a crazy hand. Okay. So you played it, you were struggling, you were down, and you sought him out. Thank God for your sister, sought him out, okay? And then you looked up to the heavens, you said, I need you. He showed up, you didn't ignore him. What do the Christians want you to do? You did what what the Bible tells you to do, and they're coming after you? No.
Exactly. It's like there's never that much of acceptance from the world, and you realize like, okay, God, I'm in this point of my life where I don't care about much hate of no matter where it comes from Christianity or from the world. I try to just give my love to God and just to follow him, and that's where where even when I see the problem, and it's something that I've been learning a lot lately, is like when I see the problem, it's just like, I'm looking at you first. I'm looking at you. I'm not looking at the problem, because if I do look at the problem, then my whole world is starting, to fail, because I'm focusing on him. I'm focusing on the problem instead of God. And that's something that is lately I've been trying to put in my life, and just to in every single thing that, I'm going through. And I just want to say, like God tells us to love each other, yes, and it's something that a lot of people says, no, you didn't have to change. If He loves us, everybody, He loves us who we are. He loved us, yes, but He does not love our sin. He does not love the way we decide to live, the way we, are happy in that kind of sin that we had, and it's just to get closer to God, you have to leave that, and it's not easy, of course. But it's the right way, because then you're going to realize like, wow, I was so attached into that war. I was so attached into that sin that I didn't realize. I thought that it was the right thing, but in reality, it's not. And He sets you free. It's just beautiful that.
I love it. I love it, man. I think that, I think the Christian communities that see you the way I'm seeing you, which is you are a tool, you're an asset, you're someone who's going to guide people in this world who are being pushed in this direction by the world or by people in their community or whatever it is. You're a pathway out. Your testimony, your life is a beacon of light to a lot of people who are in this very strange, and I have friends who are still trans, Buck Angel, Xander Kegg, Mac Beggs, like these are people who are still trans. They're not believers, but they're just like, leave me alone. Don't go after the kids, stuff like that. But for people in the Christian community, I think you're a real asset. Where can people keep up with your work? Where can people support D King, which is what's D King stand for?
The King is for the King is the King Yahweh, which is the King of, and then Yahweh, which is, and it's like God, in Hebrew. So it's, yes, you can find me on Instagram as the King Yahweh. And, I sell, well, the link is in there with my bio, and you can find it. And we sell like Christian apparel, clothing, Christian apparel. And it's beautiful because God put that on my heart too, when I gave up to my life to Him, because I stopped working and I haven't worked in things that, well, like at the bar or anything, none of those things. So I'm like, when He gave me this idea of opening this store, at the beginning, I was like, oh, it's not going to be easy. I don't think this is, something that I imagine. But God, it's, as I said, He works in very mysterious ways. And I think that if He put this into my heart, it's because He's going to bless it, and because He's going to send the people and that who's going to support me. But yeah, this is the place that God created. And He's been giving me even the logo and the name and everything. It's beautiful, when you follow Him and you're obedient to Him, He will show you the blessings. He will give you the blessings. So that's something I learned a lot too. But yeah, you can find me there as the King Yahweh and follow me too.
Okay. Absolutely. And I'll put in the show notes. Diego, I really appreciate you. I don't know how often have you done long form podcasts like this? Hola.
I know, no, this is my
Okay.
second one, I think. So
Okay.
that's kind of like, I'm
Well,
like,
good. We'll get it out there because I think that as you get more comfortable speaking and everything like that, I think that you are an asset to the church. I really do, and I hope that people reach out to you and tell your story more
thank you.
as a pathway for people who do feel lost. They're like you. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't go into the burning building. And you said I went into that burning building, and look at me. I'm okay. I didn't get burned. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a very valuable thing. I very appreciative of you coming on here, sharing your story. I'm sorry for everything you went through, but I think in time you're gonna not
Thank
be
you.
sorry. You're gonna be really glad that it happened, which is so crazy, right? The hard things that we go through, where you look back, you go, "Oh,
Yeah.
don't look
Yeah,
back on my stuff."
definitely.
So, but it's really great to meet you. I hope we keep in touch, and thank you guys so much for listening. And I think there's a really awesome, powerful story. So thank you so much, Diego. It was really great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It was an honor to be here and to, share the gospel and share my testimony. It's the way for me to share the gospel, and I'm gonna share it to all around where God leads me, So yeah.
Absolutely. Let's go. All right. Take care.